Welcome to the Fitness Business School podcast, the show for fitness business owners who want to grow their income, increase their impact, and improve their lifestyle. Be sure to listen till the end of this episode because we have a brand new special offer exclusive for listeners. So stay tuned. Hey, Pat Rigsby here again with another episode of the Fitness Business School. And today I have Brandon Cullen. He is the co-founder and chief concept officer of Madabolic. And we're going to unpack everything Metabolic today. But first, welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. I've been a quiet fan of the show for a bit. So, it's going to be an exciting podcast, I think, or at least I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I am too. And, just to give the listeners, the viewers some background, a little bit of your backstory, because I know it's an interesting story with, being involved in hockey all the way through to franchising. Let's start to unpack it. Backstory.
So I grew up in Canada and followed a very common Canadian childhood dream to play hockey in the National Hockey League, and got close. Unfortunately, had a career-ending concussion kind of at the height of that chase. I was actually in camp with the New York Islanders, and after grinding it out in amateur and the minor leagues for about 10 years, I just had one of those perfect camps that the Islanders needed a player like me. I honestly went there just to use it as like a warm up for the season coming up. And I just, had one of those perfect camps. And in the same week, I signed my first true NHL contract with the Islanders. The next day, I got a concussion and never played hockey again, which was, I like this story now because I'm happy with knowing I was a minor league caliber player. Got to have a cup of coffee, and then it was over. So I'm okay with it. But how that translated into fitness was, being a fringe player, I had to do so much right off the ice to give myself a chance on the ice. So the off season and strength and conditioning became a thing that started when I was 16 and it became the base of my pyramid. It was the one thing I could control. And, the weight room translated well onto the ice for me. So I took it very serious. And I started young with a personal trainer. Like a lot of people, that interest and that obsession with having an edge on the opponents and on your teammates led you to do your own research, your own education, experimentation. And eventually I started training players in my early 20s because they just recognized the shape I was coming to camp in, and they just asked some very, candid questions of, do you mind if I follow your program? So it's weird. I started my fitness journey working with collegiate and professional athletes and made my way back to the general public after the injury. And I think it was just, there was opportunity to reach more people. Being, to use a hockey player, being Connor McDavid's strength and conditioning coach is a great idea, but a lot has to go right for that to be your profession. And me and my co-founder who played that final year together, him having a very similar style of play and needing that off-ice conditioning to excel on ice, it was a perfect marriage. So we kind of dove into the strength and conditioning world, the business side of it in the late 2000s. And after a few different versions of the program, we eventually built something that people know today as Madabolic. And we hang out in the boutique fitness space and prioritize strength and conditioning. And I think we do a pretty good job at it.
Well, no, I think that's a really interesting journey, but it's also
one that I think elements of you see a number of times, right? People who are in the sports performance world became very passionate about it, became a cornerstone of what they do. And then I know in my case, coming from a collegiate strength and conditioning background, thinking, hey, I like to train athletes. I'm like, well, there's way more opportunity in the mainstream fitness landscape. But I'm curious, because I think you touched on it a little bit. Hey, it's a good story now, but how were you able to kind of transition from, this injury that obviously kind of derailed kind of stage one of your professional life and turn it into what's been a big win now?
Yeah, I think what helped me, and this is an important and probably sensitive topic that I think needs to be addressed a little bit more. When you hear the horror stories of athletes with maybe a career-ending injury or just loss of identity, that transition can become very difficult for them. And a lot of times the highlights are unfortunately the suicide cases, the CTE cases. But a lot of times what I see with that is that's almost like a loss of identity and loss of direction coupled with a major head injury, which makes things difficult. I think what helped me is I never really felt like I identified as just a hockey player. I was a competitor that happened to grow up in Canada and was put on skates at a certain age. I think I was a good athlete that if I would have applied it to a few different sports, I probably would have been successful. So when the day I walked into the neurologist's office and I was not able to shake these post-concussion syndrome or symptoms for over a year, essentially I was just told, hey, Brandon, we're never going to clear you to play again. And I'll talk about this in two ways because it's healthy and it's not healthy in certain components in life. I have a really good ability to compartmentalize, which helps with sports. It helps with performance. I think it helps with business. It can hurt things like relationships. I've seen that before. But when I walked out of that doctor's office, I pretty much hit the pavement and said, what am I going to do next? And because I had the background in training people as my summer job, it at least made sense to see if I could make this a career. And as I was figuring it out, being kind of like a grinder and a go-getter, I was bartending a couple nights a week. I was flipping houses because I didn't know if fitness could become a career. I knew I was good at it, but could you actually make it a career? So I think, the ability to be able to compartmentalize, the ability to immediately transfer that loss of identity and competitive edge into business. I was lucky that I had that in me. I was lucky that I grew up in a family that entrepreneurship was a thing, and I got to watch this level of a grind from a young age. But I can easily look back and think of friends and the horror stories of people I played against. And a lot of times I always want to ask, was it the concussions or was it the no direction, the no guidance after sport that is the main contributor to many people's spiral downwards? And, I'm trying to pick the right words to not, to say it right, because it's a very sad thing when you see very capable people not be able to apply that past their sport.
Yeah, I've known a number of people who had injuries derail professional sports careers that it definitely took a window of time for them to kind of reset and find the next thing. So the fact that you were able to move into something else and apply a lot of the traits that made you a successful athlete to it, I thought was definitely worth unpacking a little bit. So,
Mhm.
so tell us about that first training facility then.
So in 2004 or five season, do you do that too? You actually label the seasons? Yeah, so I always go by seasons. So actually it was 2002 and three next year. Yeah, let's say somewhere around 2004. Part of the game at that time was an extremely physical game. There was a lot of fighting, and I was a physical player. So every time I'd have to jump up in a league, you somewhat have to earn your stripes all over again. And every league I jumped up in, the player just got bigger, stronger, and faster and tougher, right? So part of my training was I would do some boxing and some mixed martial arts type stuff in downtown Buffalo. And it was mainly I had a very talented, creative coach there, but the way he looked at the way you'd throw a knee or a kick or a punch or an elbow, like he would relate that to your first step on the ice. It was just movement and getting more explosive and well-rounded as an athlete. Well, when I was in this boxing gym, I saw this guy in the corner doing these insane workouts, and he would put me through like a finisher at the end after all my sparring. What I didn't know at the time, that was kind of like the birth of CrossFit, and he was one of these original trainers. So when we were deciding, me and my co-founder were deciding what to do after hockey, I made the naive statement saying, I think this CrossFit thing actually might have some legs. Maybe we should look at it. So how we got into it was we were involved in the 125th, I think it was, affiliate owner in the whole world. And then we opened up a sister business, and we were in the CrossFit world for a couple years. And it was great. Like it was a very different time. I mean, your gym at that point was was filled with very capable people. Usually at the early days, the people that found CrossFit were military and collegiate and professional athletes. And then we got to see it hit pop culture. And we were like, I don't know if this is what you need to be doing for the everyday consumer. There's some good here, don't get me wrong. But if you want to look at someone aging athletically and being able to train uninjured for a long time into their 50s, I think we want to look at this a little bit different. And, that conversation, we started experimenting with stuff on weekends, doing more conditioning based stuff. We focused on athleticism more than just straight up and down power and speed. We brought that in. We removed the score clock and started doing things to time, putting everybody on a level playing field, trying to accomplish work together versus trying to win the sport of fitness. And a light bulb went off like very quick. We knew that there had to be something in the middle in this group fitness model that was undeveloped, because at that point you kind of had like sports specific training on one end of the spectrum, and you had your kind of Gold's Gym YMCA boot camps, and there was no like training for everyday people. There were workouts, there were boot camps, there were social clubs, but there wasn't, I'm going to get you moving better and stronger every day. And that was the question. We wanted to build a company that allowed everyday people to age athletically. And selfishly, a little bit of ego behind this, but I wanted fitness professionals to respect what we were doing. And that might have been just as important as how big we wanted to get. If we landed on your block, I wanted everyone to know that we were good at what we did and were respected. So that was kind of the genesis of how we built this. And it's about 12 years ago now. We've just kind of been refining that original model. And yeah, now it's a living, breathing methodology that I probably train myself a little bit different as a 20-year-old athlete these days, just being smarter.
So you opened up location number one. Was this still Buffalo then, or?
Oh God, no, I probably really screwed up that story. Buffalo is when I was training for my hockey career. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina today.
Yeah.
that was the team I finished my career on, where I met my co-founder. So we opened our flagship location for Madabolic. It's funny enough, it's the same one I sit in today. Just
Nice.
we've built it out in a different way now with office space for our franchise operations on one half of the building, and then the main training floor on the other. But no, we started in Charlotte. I will say this, we're a franchise model now, but the way it started was us saying, I think we can make some noise in Charlotte. I think we can actually control this entire market from what we're trying to do. Not saying that there wouldn't be other concepts, but the goals we set out to do, I think we can really make some noise. And within 6 to 12 months, we just had a lot of people asking questions. Would you do this in another city? Would you? We had the YMCAs ask us, could you program design this into all of our facilities? And we were young kids that were like, well, why would we put ourselves in competition with bigger businesses? And why would we partner with people we don't know in other cities? And, some point on this journey, someone said, have you ever considered franchising? And we hired a franchise consultant. They helped us build out those first set of franchise agreements and systems. And yeah, we just kept our feet moving. And today we have 40 locations open, another 50 in development. And I probably don't reflect enough and look back, because we're always thinking of how much crisper we can get, cleaner, how much better, how much more support we can provide our franchisees. But yeah, if you compartmentalize and look back, I'm super happy and proud with the team we have and kind of where we're headed.
Well, I'm for my own good, and hopefully everybody else is interested in this stuff. As somebody who's been pretty intimately involved in the franchising world at various points, as a franchisee, as a franchisor, as a consultant to franchises, I'm always curious, like what are some of the details? Like, what's the typical franchise unit look like for Metabolic?
Yeah, so we do our spaces are about 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So we're able to do it lean enough. But also we're known for coaching. I think that's like the biggest difference. We're known for program design, but I don't want to get super nerdy on what we're doing. We're balancing energy systems and the right movement patterns. We're very strength biased, and we're not 100% every day. We teach our people to drive in different gears, essentially providing the right environment and enough stress that keeps you moving forward but doesn't cripple you. And I know this makes sense to you, Pat, but and we also periodize our training. Like our program is based off of 4 12-week cycles. Every 13th week is a deload week. And we've created an algorithm that, as best you could look at all different schedules, history of injury, natural athleticism, different types of clients. We've created a system where our client comes 4 days a week on average. 80% of our clients system-wide are on a unlimited membership, which is, in our world's huge, because a lot of who we compete with is the 1 and 2 day a week people, and ours come 4 days a week. So we kind of thrive with that 25 to 50-year-old high performer. And when I say that, and I've screwed this up in the past, it's not like this insane athletic background. It's more of like a wiring, someone who values structure and accountability. They will pay for results. They expect results. And obviously in our world, they value strength training, because in the boutique fitness industry, strength is a buzzword as of today, and it's trending, but we're actually moving weight. Like, we do have 100-pound dumbbells on our floor and 48-kilogram kettlebells. So the way we really stand out in the fitness industry, specific to boutique and specific to franchising, is the majority of our competitors are in more of a boot camp structure. It's almost like an organized chaos where you're cycling through 15 to 30 movements a day. And guess what? I could sell that all day long, and I know why it works for a lot of people. But we land in a market, we target the high performer, we create a lot of structure, we set a standard of coaching excellence, and we prioritize strength. And I think that, right or wrong, I like a sniper approach where I can pick the consumer I want to cater everything to, versus like a shotgun approach where you have to make a lot of people happy. And I think that's what allows us to really stand out in the fitness franchise ecosystem, if that answers your question.
Well, I mean, I think probably touched on one of the differentiators that I see virtually all franchises lacking at this point, is an emphasis on coaching. It's very program centric, and I mean, this is franchising, right? Like, it's how do I find the lowest common denominator employee where I can pay the least and make them interchangeable, and make things dependent on screens and equipment rather than technical prowess as a coach, accountability, empathy, all that stuff. I mean, the fact that you're pursuing that and that's a priority for you already differentiates you in the franchising landscape by a long shot.
Yeah, and we even try to, it's weird. I often feel like we run a kind of like corporate portfolio in a franchising model. And by the way, that causes some issues because I'm a pretty big stickler on quality control and what do I expect from unit to unit. But also you gotta, I have learned that, Brandon, you chose a franchise model, and I really believe my role as one of the founders is to make sure that 80 to 90% of what I expect stays in place as we scale. But know that you got to take some strategic risks. And you brought up some good points too. Like, we pay well. I mean, our coaches, depending on the market, they can make $50 to $90 a class, depending on if that class is filled, and depending on their expertise and how long they've been with us and things like that. We don't just sell to anyone. So give you an example. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's probably, in the greater 15-mile radius of the city, 20-mile radius, there's probably 25 Orange Theories and maybe 20 F45s. A few have closed recently, F45s, but still, like, 15 plus. And I think when we finish this market, we'll do 5 or 6. We have 3 right now. And the 3 here probably have about 1,000 members between the 3. This powerhouse is close to 4, and then the other 2 are split evenly. And in a boutique model, like, that's good. That's strong, especially when 80% of your clientele is on the highest price point membership coming often. So weirdly enough, like, we're almost a retention driven business, and we compete against a volume industry. So again, I feel comfortable with what we do, but I can tell you this, we are an outlier in franchising for sure.
So, I mean, you talked about member per unit a little bit there. So what's a typical unit? If they're 2,500 square feet, what's a typical unit have? Number of member or clients, average membership rate. And I know, like, depending on market, you may have some variance with membership rates or whatever else, but just some norms, so some people maybe get a better sense for what Metabolic's about.
Yeah. So we kind of like to oversimplify it. We have like A, B, and C markets. Usually that's going to be based on like psychographic population density. And the reason I carved that out, it's not just population, right? Like we're looking for a 25 to 50-year-old high performer. So A, B, and C markets, I would say membership rates, C markets would be around 150 a month. B markets would be somewhere around 200, and then the A plus market, A or A plus, would be 200 and above. I think what's interesting about kind of our model and how specific we are is like when we go into a market and we're going to look at that balance sheet and build it out, we kind of reverse engineer everything where we get an idea of what we can charge for memberships based on competitors in the area. We know what we can tolerate from a real estate cost, and that will drive our real estate search, because our primary goal is to break even at 150 members. And to do some simple math, right? Those numbers I talked about here in Charlotte, like I don't sell those. They exist, but that's not what I sell. If I can show a potential franchisee that at 100 members above break even, let's say you are in a B market and it's 200 a month, we typically keep 80 cents on the dollar. So even at 250 members, which is completely doable, you can make an argument that you're positive $16,000 a month, which is a very good business model in any A, B, or C market. So like we won't allow a franchisee to get hyper emotional about a space if it takes them above that 150 threshold, because we're trying to build out a sustainable business. So when they get to 250, they're saying, hey, when can I open the next unit? This is fantastic. And even in an average, or maybe what we would consider a little bit underperforming unit, even if you're at 200 members, 50 above, and you're positive $8,000 a month, it's still a good return on investment. Yeah. So to go back to your square footage conversation, we run either 20 or 25 people classes, and it's all based on the price, square footage per member, because we want the trainer to be able to get around and coach. Like we need seams, we need length and width, we need the ability to perform movement in space, and a coach to be able to get to that movement to correct. So if you think of a 25 person class, it's going to be somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 square feet. A 20 person class, we can do, I would say 16 to 20 or 2,000 or 1,600 to 2,000 square feet. And then our lobbies are lean. So 500 extra square feet, whatever's left over, depending on the community, we may do a shower if it's a community that expects showers. But COVID helped with this a little bit, where the expectations of these bougie, eccentric lobbies aren't there. And the funny thing about our consumer, what I love, and I get the other side of it, right? But the second the workout's done, they are out the doors to go kill life. You know, they're not sitting in the lobby for 30 minutes after talking about whatever fad diet they're on, right? Like they're out, you know, at their kids' sports, they're on the trading floor, they're to their business. So that has allowed us to relook at the lobby too. And prioritize the training floor where we make our money. So we keep our lobbies lean, and we keep our training floors spacious.
Very nice. And yeah, you already answered my follow-up question about number of participants per session per class. So that's great. So you guys have gone from, I mean, the location you're sitting in to 40 open with 50 under development. So what's next? Like, what's the future hold? What are you doing to grow? Who's the right franchisee? I've kind of bundled in a bunch of questions all at once there, but
Yeah, so in 2019, we took on private equity partners because we were like, okay, we feel good. Now it's time to go. So at that point, I think we only had 10 units. And honestly, at that point, we never once advertised. It just things came to us and we made a decision if it was right to do or not. After about 6 months of the new partnership, building out the systems and us hitting go, right in time for COVID, by the way. But since then, we've added 30 units, open units. We're going to open 3 in the next 30 days too. So that'll get us above 40. I think we'll be at 50 by Q1 or Q2 of this year. The initial goal with our new partnership, it was something as specific and vague as this. Let's target the top 50 markets in America. And based on density, let's drop 2 to 5 units there. If we do that, it should get us to 150 units comfortably without being greedy. What I don't know is if we do this right, does that give us the opportunity to go bigger? Because maybe at that point you're a noun, people know you, you can chance smaller markets, you can maybe do more markets in areas, but we're not there yet. What our current team does know, what got us to 50 probably won't get us to 150. And we anticipate, I don't know if the right word is transaction or new partnership or additional partners. We're open to the right partnership to go bigger, but we're not looking for it. But I just have this gut feeling that things look a lot different at 100 compared to 50, at 150 compared to 100. And then, who knows? I mean, international may be something that presents itself at that point, which becomes a whole different thing. So I want to say, we're, make no mistake, we're looking to grow, but I do think we're in the right frame of mind to be patient right now. We don't have to do anything drastic right now to keep doing things well.
So are your franchisees typically investors? Are they owner operators? How has that worked out for you? Because it's kind of been across the board in the fitness franchising world over the years.
Yeah, so if you ask me who would I love to have as a franchisee, it would be a 30-year-old owner operator with $400,000 in their bank account. But that unicorn, there's not many of them, right? So it's not the best growth strategy. So to your point, it is a combination of both. I think the difference with us that people could argue may present a ceiling is we are selling excellence and expectation from a coaching side of things. To your point, we're not throwing workouts up on a screen and calling it a professional approach to training, right? So for us to target a group of physicians, pull together $1 million to open 3 units in Scottsdale, Arizona, if we take that deal, we have to be very, very cautious and specific on who becomes the face of that business, because we almost want to view them as money and just money, unless one of them wants to be the strategic business mind that builds the team beneath them. So we do have to be a little bit more cautious. If you're selling excellence, you need to deliver, right? So that primary face, typically the general manager of the business, who we like to have skin in the game that is capable on the training floor too, right? So, some people call that a ceiling. I call it an opportunity that we just offer something different that that's just different in our industry, right? We're trying our best as we make strategic decisions to grow, to be extremely professional in what we deliver.
Oh, I can relate. I remember the first franchise I co-founded was a sports performance franchise, and my next door neighbor had been one of the co-founders of Long John Silver's and grown that, and in retirement still owned 55 Wendy's. And he was like, "Hey, this seems like a good idea. When could I just buy a state?" And I'm like, "You're not our guy because you're not a coach. You're not like I'm not at this point equipped to do a good job in creating that kind of environment for just a guy who's typically an area developer or a master franchisee." So
Yeah,
we've kind of been through that a few times, and I mean, if you want a coaching driven model, you definitely have to kind of be the pioneer and carve your own path, because it's very non-traditional from the typical broker approach to selling, the investor model where it's kind of rinse and repeat. So very interesting.
and I read a good quote the other day on LinkedIn. It was specific to franchising, and it wasn't fitness related, but I think it's even more fitness or hospitality, which I would call us, related, with our vessel being training, right? But it's still a hospitality business. But they said an A player can make a C market work, but a C player will kill an A market. Or I'm paraphrasing that, right? So even like, which is super interesting, is we thrive in young kind of metro markets. That's like, if you were to look at how Metabolic profiles, that's where we should be. That said, we have some super successful sleepy markets that profile terrible that have believable coach or set of coaches that are working well. So that's kind of these new strategic risks where I can be honest, my partners would say this. I used to flip out when they would suggest some middle American market beside like a Lens Crafters in a strip mall. I'm like, no way we're going there type thing. But the reality is we're opening in certain markets now, betting on a certain individual where a market shouldn't work. And that's the thing that now I'm questioning, well, how big can we do this with the right person? Because, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina, that is arguably the most competitive fitness market per capita in the entire country. It is a mecca. But even the volume of fitness consumer here that is available to you, you put the wrong person behind that desk, even with our model, you're in trouble. Because I've been using this quote a lot lately. A franchise system is a system of best practices, guidelines, and playbooks, and we teach you how to implement the game plan, right? But when people talk about turnkey business models, it's such a fallacy because there's no such thing as turnkey human beings, right? You just can't plug and play humans into a model. Like, you need to find that right person. And by the way, this is not a metabolic program or problem. I have good friends that own businesses in the city, and they would tell me the same thing, that if you put the wrong person behind the coffee bar, it's not going to work, or the restaurant or the bar or whatever it is. So I know this isn't a metabolic thing, but I do believe it's a hospitality thing.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I think hospitality is an industry that I've long looked to borrow from, and I think you're spot on. You, coming from a sports background, knows this as well as anybody. And you can give somebody a great playbook, but if they can't play, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to learn more about Metabolic, about you, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, so me personally, like, even being the founder of this company, the thing that inspires me is just entrepreneurship, branding, disruptive thinking. I have a serious rub with average thinking and average concepts. I like niche concepts. So I do a lot of content development, not only for us as a company, but me as an individual on LinkedIn. So I'd be easy to find on LinkedIn. As far as the company, I'd say it two ways. If you were a person that's looking for a new place to work out, right? Because we're in a lot of great cities now. Like we are in 40 cities and that's only going to grow. I would just say maybe pull up Metabolic's Instagram. So at Madabolic, because that'll give you a real good sense of our vibe. And I feel like with that look, you'll make a very quick decision on if this makes sense for you or not. And then if you are on the investor side of things, sure, Instagram's a great starting point, but I would say just head to our website, www.metabolic.com. And, we're all educated people. You can peruse the menu bar. There'll be information on franchising, or there'll just be general information on the company. But yeah, like I said, I am lucky to be the voice and face for a very strong team that makes this engine work. So if you're looking for us, I think we're a good option for a lot of people, for sure.
Well, good. It's been wonderful to talk with you. I mean, I spend the bulk of my time with independent fitness business owners, but I think that both showcasing the other side of things and not seeing them all as the evil empire is probably a good thing. But then also, man, I mean, learning from what's working, whether it's in industry, learning from somebody like this, out of industry, learning from hospitality, learning from retail, learning from other service businesses. I think it's just such a valuable, but maybe often overlooked opportunity to improve. So I appreciate you jumping on and sharing and letting me and our listeners know more about you and Metabolic. So thanks a bunch.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Pat.
All right. And that's Pat and Brandon signing off with another episode of the Fitness Business School.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Fitness Business School. Before you go, I have a quick announcement. One of the things that we've been doing with our current clients is taking them through this ideal business diagnostic. And really what it is this checklist that allows you to pinpoint exactly what your business needs next so you can keep improving, keep growing, and build a business that you love to own. One that pays you well, one that allows you to have the impact you want to have, and one that allows you to have a lifestyle that you truly enjoy. In this diagnostic, we walk through everything and we do an evaluation and can instantly pinpoint what you need to do next to build that business that you want. I'm going to extend this opportunity to get on with either me or my team and take you through this evaluation and fix your business's most vital needs fast. So if we take you through this, you're going to be able to make those vital changes that you need to finally have what I call your ideal business. If you'd be interested in going through this entirely free, risk-free diagnostic with us and learn what you already have in place, what you're doing well, and where your greatest opportunities for rapid improvement are, just shoot me an email with diagnostic in the subject line to pat@patrigsby.com. Again, an email to pat@patrigsby.com with diagnostic in the subject line will get you scheduled and take you through this evaluation to help you build the business you want.